All right, so I want to make another video here. I want to start this one with looking at the large scale pattern that is going to be responsible for bringing us our Sunday storm system to potentially portions of the East Coast. So let me show you what the large scale pattern is going to look like. All right, so here is the large scale pattern that is going to be responsible for bringing that snow potential late this weekend across portions of the eastern mid Atlantic and eastern New England region. There's going to be this dip in the jet stream here, and that's going to allow this cold air, not super frigid cold, not Arctic air, but it's going to be cold enough to support snow. If we can get precipitation on the cold side of the frontal boundary, it's going to be draped along the East Coast. So it's going to allow this cold air to filter southward. We're going to have energy diving down in across the central U.S. into the Gulf, and that is going to result in a surface storm system that will be guided up and kind of, I don't want to say along the coast because it's not really going to be along the coast. It's going to be offshore, but it might be close enough where you might get some snow across portions of the eastern mid Atlantic and into eastern New England. That's where the threat zone is as of right now. And I'll show you the map that I made here. This is where I believe that the current threat zone is in relation to this storm on Sunday. And that's eastern mid Atlantic and the eastern New England region. And that's including eastern Maine, New Hampshire, southeastern New Hampshire, eastern Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, potentially Long Island, and into portions potentially eastern New Jersey. I'm not certain on that. I think eastern New England stands the best chance. When you get further south, that's a much bigger question that needs to be answered at this point. And I'm not sure yet. I'm really not sure yet because there's a lot that goes into this, and the models have kind of been fluctuating back and forth. But most recent runs, as of last night and this morning, have shifted slightly westward, and there's a key to that. And I want to show you what it is. Let's look at the models here now. All right, so this is the European model, and this is the energy right here diving down into the central U.S. And this is what we call a positively tilted trough. And I want to show you that because that's important too. It's going to be the shape of the trough as it passes over this region. But this is positively tilted. You get the trough axis oriented from northeast to southwest. We're going to move this along. You see this energy diving down south along the Gulf Coast, picking up Gulf moisture too. And then it becomes neutrally tilted, which is the trough axis is oriented from north to south. But the other key to this is where this goes, that's going to help guide this storm. But look at this northern piece. The northern piece is out ahead of the southern piece. That is going to suppress this storm and make it go more offshore rather than allowing it to go north and come up the coast. But most recent runs do suggest that this northern piece slows down just a tad, just a hair, and it allows this piece of energy to come further north. And look at this. And I'll show you. I'm going to move this along, and you kind of get an idea that you get a negative tilt here, just a slightly negative tilt. Negative tilt. That's good if you want snow in eastern New England and even the eastern mid-Atlantic region, because what that does is that guides the surface storm back up and sort of not along the coast, but close enough to the coast where you can get precipitation to flow back in and into the cold air, and then you get snow out of it. And that's what the most recent European model update has done, and that's what the GFS has done too. But there's a new GFS that came out, and I want to see if it's ready by the time we get to the GFS. But let's look at the surface here. I want to show you what it looks like at the surface because it's very, very close. And I mean very, very close. Let's look at that right now. Let's move to the surface. Look at that. And we'll zoom in here in a second. But here's your storm. Here's your potential for some snow in the south. Not a lot. Some. That's it. I think mostly it's going to be you might get some wet snowflakes to mix in with most. It's going to be mostly rain. You might get some wet snowflakes to mix in more on the back end of it. I don't think there's really going to be much in the way of accumulations down in the southeast. I think that there's been a lot of hype over that, and I think that people were just interpreting the models as they were coming out and kind of incorrectly at that. I don't think that there's going to be enough cold air and enough precipitation flowing back into the cold air at that point to get an accumulating snow. You might get some, it might make some roads slippery in some areas, but it's not going to be a lot of snow. But you might get some wet snowflakes in northern Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. But then look at this, as it comes close to the coast, look at how close it gets to the eastern mid-Atlantic region. Let me zoom in here. Now's a good time for me to zoom in because this is where it gets interesting. You want to pay attention to how close it gets. Look how close the precipitation is to Delaware, eastern Maryland, New Jersey, and then you get some snow into portions of the eastern mid-Atlantic. And let's move this along. Look at that. Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. You can get some snow out of this. Negatively tilted trough will throw that precipitation back onto the cold side of the frontal boundary. It's going to be draped along the coast, and then it produces snow across portions of eastern New England and possibly even into Maine. Not a lot, but you could get a few inches out of it. Now let's see what the GFS has done now. The GFS was kind of on board for the earlier run. Let me just show you what the earlier run of the GFS looked like. Let's move to the GFS. I'm going to show you the overnight run first, and then we'll start looking at start diagnosing the most recent run that is updating right now. Let's see, is this it? Where's that? Here. There we go. Here we go. Yep, look at this. All right, so here's a storm system moving in. New Jersey, Delaware, into Maryland. I think the GFS is a bit bullish. And I'm hoping that on the run that just came out, I'm hoping that it relaxed quite a bit. Because I really don't foresee the snow getting this far inland, especially across southern mid-Atlantic and even into the central mid-Atlantic region. I don't think that all of New Jersey and even eastern Pennsylvania or Maryland or Delaware is in play. I think right along the coast in this portion, right up in here, into Long Island, into eastern New England, I think that's where the snow potential is. I think the GFS is a bit bullish on this. But it still gives you that idea that negatively tilted trough and the northern piece moves a little bit slower, allows the energy to go up the coast more, and allows the storm to be close enough in order to get snow in this region. Now let's look at the newest run. Let's see what happened. Here's the most recent run of the GFS, and I want to show you this is the energy. This is the energy diving down in, dives down in along the Gulf Coast just like this. And then look at that. It becomes neutrally tilted, neutral tilt. And this northern piece moves a little bit slower than what it was moving yesterday and allows this southern energy to come further northward. And then you start to see a slight negative tilt to it as it approaches the New England region. Just take a look at this. A slightly negative tilt, which can throw that precipitation back onto the cold side of the frontal boundary and produce some snow. And I want to show you what it looks like at the surface because I think it's coming more in line with the European model. It really does seem to be coming more in line with the European model like I thought it would because it just was way too bullish for whatever reason. But this is much more like what I think has the best chance of occurring. Let's zoom in. It's easier to see when we zoom in to the Northeast region. But look at this. Look at the difference between what I just showed you with the GFS. I still think that it's a little bit more bullish down here in the eastern and central mid-Atlantic region. But up in New England, look at that. It clips eastern New England into Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and even portions of eastern Maine. That's where I think that the best chance for snow exists at this point. Things could change. There's a small difference in the upper levels can make a huge difference at the surface. But we'll see what happens. I think that up in the eastern New England region is the best chance right now. And it's all based off of this. Let's look at the upper levels one more time. I want to show you the upper levels. That's so important with this storm. Here's the upper levels one last time. I'm just going to go through this really quickly because I didn't realize we're already at 9 minutes. Here it is. You start to get it's a neutrally tilted trough. Starts to turn negative. Look at that. Slightly negative. Very slightly negative. Look at that. Slightly negative. And then it moves up into New England, and it's negative. It's negative, and I think it's enough to bring some snow to portions of the region up there. But then what happens after Sunday? I want to show you what happens after Sunday because we're not out of the woods. Let me just show you the surface map one last time here. All right, so what happens after Sunday is this. We are going to be locked in the cold over the coming week into the following weekend. We are also going to have energy cascading southward across the country, and there will be more storms. The exact track and trajectory of the storms is extremely uncertain at this point. But the point is, there is going to be more potential for some more snow and some more ice and some more mixed precipitation events across the central and eastern half of the country, because we're going to be locked in the cold air. We're going to have energy diving southward. So if we can get this energy to interact with that frontal boundary that's going to be draped along right and along here, we can get snow out of it. We can get wintry precipitation. So we're going to have more potential, and I think the best potential comes late next week into the following week, and possibly even early the following week. But we're in a very active pattern now, so there's going to be more potential. Stay tuned. If anything changes, I will let you guys know. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed.